Here in part two, I'm going to explain why I describe things the way I do, right? Why do I say it's whites, Jews, and LGBT people in the governing class? And sometimes I forget to say the part where it's in the governing class, but it's also their cultures. Also, I'm going to talk to you about four different types of people, two different types of liberals and two different types of conservatives. And that's going to help us understand what is being said. It's going to help the viewers really understand what is being said. You'll see what I mean. So let's talk about whites, Jews, and LGBT people in the governing class. For those of you who would say, why do you say they're white? Well, why did they say they were in Rome in the story about Christ, in the Bible? Why did they say that they're in Rome? Why did they say the Jews are the ones who are trying to get the Romans to kill them and the Roman soldiers are mocking them? Why did they bring it up at all, right? Because they were explaining what's going on. So is it racist to explain what's going on? No. Now, on top of that, pay close attention. On top of that, there's a bunch of whites, Jews, and LGBT people who are in psychological operation units that are from the military or work with the military, what have you, who are using military grade psychology. And they know that any sane person would be angry at rich whites, Jews, and LGBT people and the people they control. Okay? They know that beyond a reasonable doubt. And it takes on new meaning if you're black or mulatto. Okay? And when you think about the types of things I talk about in my video series, it takes on even more serious meaning. Now, a huge part of the psychological operation to kind of try to explain, to kind of simplify it, is that they're basically like, look, we're white, we're Jews, and we're LGBT, and we don't like you. Okay, that's a huge part of it. It's every single day. Sometimes they say it just that way, basically. They basically try to get me to do things in a way that is more white, more Jewish-like, more LGBT. They fume me and poison me. They've changed the way I look. They've kept me from doing martial arts. They're trying to force me into those cultures. And as you can imagine, that is infuriating to God and I. And it comes with extreme punishment. And they don't care about their kids, all the people they starve, all the people being raped. They don't care about anything. And they just keep coming at me every day saying, do it this way, do it this way. Okay? And they know because they're evil and they're emphasizing their cultures, that it makes it even more important for me not to do it that way. For me to make it clear that I'm not praising them, that I'm chastising them. Okay, so now the other part of this video is the four different groups of people. So the first one is a textbook liberal, someone who's for individual rights, someone who doesn't want the government to trample on those rights. So only in that sense is there limited government, not limited government when it comes to securing people's rights, their freedom of religion, their freedom of speech, okay, the right to a fair trial. Without these things, like life isn't like worth living. The right to pursue happiness, the right to make a romantic pitch to a woman without people in cults and social clubs and corporations and government groups and police and military saying, hey, you can't do that because you're showing us up. That's outrageous. That is petty. That's immature. That's outrageous. So the second type is the modern political party liberal. There's a difference between being a textbook liberal, not within the boundaries of Freemasonry or this or that, but a textbook liberal, and being a modern political party liberal. They're corporatists, they're so-called progressives, they're just controlled by cults and social clubs, and everyone knows it. Look how they speak on YouTube and in his propaganda, his theater arts. It's coming from the cults, right? Dionysus, one of the main deities of the West. Ritual madness, a young Zeus. Zeus, the main deity. In his young form, he's a deity of rape and ritual madness and grapes and the harvest and so on. In his old form, he's also a deity of rape and rape by deception. Story for another day. So there's those two groups right there. That distinction is very important to make. An actual liberal versus a kind of modern cult-controlled political party liberal. Okay. The next category is a conservative in terms of a textbook. Now, let's look to say 1950s. In the 1950s, what was a conservative? A conservative was a complete monster, still is a complete monster. We'll get to that. Now, why? Because they wanted to conserve white supremacy, segregation, the abuse of black people. They wanted to conserve privilege and fragility and denial and guilt, right? They wanted to do that wittingly or otherwise. In the process of trying to reinforce their system, they wanted to conserve the madness of the system and the economic disparity and on and on and on. Okay? Obviously, they're monsters. They're on the wrong side of history. We have a Martin Luther King Day for a reason. I can go on and on. It's wrong because it's wrong. Before you read in the Bible, before you think about Martin Luther King, it's wrong because it's wrong. Who would have thought? The last type is a person who is swayed by a textbook conservative to vote conservative. They identify as conservative because they don't know what to do with themselves. They're from a small white town in the South. They're from a MAGA family or whatever. And so they don't actually think that they should conserve white supremacy. They just decide to vote for the Republican Party, which is the party that more obviously conserves white supremacy, while the left wing, if you will, is also run by white supremacists, Jewish supremacists, and LGBT supremacists, people who want to conserve the cult and social club and corporate control of society. That's why they're often called corporatists. And corporate people, historically, going back hundreds and hundreds of years, were called people, social club people, Skull and Bones, Berzelius Society, Club of Rome, Wolf's Head, Freemasons, right? Eastern Star Freemasons, Boulets, and on and on and on and on. Okay, and there's many groups like that, the Fabian Society, and many groups like this. Pilgrim Society, the Round Table Group, the Bilderbergs, many, many, many groups. And everyone knows, like corporations, when a bunch of rich people get together, they influence things a whole lot. And it's always wrong in Western history.